No,
Ken.
good.
But I just want to include that while I did not give up, my family and friends did not give up on me either.
Yeah.
And it was only as a result of them staying actively involved in my life that I was able to do what I did.
Welcome to another episode of Thread of Enlightenment, guys. You know, my purpose here is to welcome our guests. And I like to welcome them this way, to thank them for their time, to honor them, because time is precious. That commodity, once it's spent, is spent. And so we want to honor Ken for coming and sharing some of this precious time with us. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful created him. It gave him wisdom, insight, knowledge that he is able to walk through, and he's able to guide you and I. So I want to honor him for allowing us access to who he is and becoming vulnerable for us. So Ken, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you, Ken.
It's an honor to have you, sir. As I said, I've been reading your story and so forth. And the question that I ask everyone that comes to this platform is, my question is based on, how do you serve mankind today?
Well, Ken, I try and do my best to inform and enlighten people about what it means to have a disability, how people with disabilities are no different than anybody else. We just have some more either physical or intellectual limitations. But in essence, we have the same needs, wants, and desires as everyone else. And that includes the opportunity to work. And I've devoted my life and my career to encourage others, other employers, other coworkers, to welcome and give the opportunity to people with disabilities to work in a competitive setting. And I think employers will find when they do that, they find that people with disabilities are some of the hardest working, most dedicated, and most loyal employees an employer can ever hope to find. And I'm very proud that I'm currently serving on the board of directors at the Viscardi Center on Long Island in New York, where they're dedicated to helping people with all types of physical disabilities.
I can tell your accent, I'm from New York, from Queens. I can tell your Long Island accent. But, guys, this is usually the case in Ken's, as he said, and I have several corporations that listen this way as well. And I can attest, because I know I worked and hired people through my organization. Anyone with disabilities, usually a more, how should I put, loyal individual. They work really, truly hard because they are so grateful for the opportunity. But we learn much, and I learned much, and my staff learned much, because we learn from each other, guys. Don't allow any type of, as Ken said, any kind of limitations to challenge all of those preconceived ideas you have. Release them and let people be and learn, because you don't know who holds the next key for your life. You really don't. And we ought to be respectful to everyone, love, and walk. I want to go back, Ken. One of our customs to go back when we call it the beginnings of our beginnings. And that is your childhood, when we were born. Spend some time with our family. There in our family, we're going to learn our communication skills. We learn a bunch of stuff. Our beliefs are developed there. Our pattern of behavior is there. The mindset that we have, good or bad, it's all developed right there. What was your family unit like?
Well, I had a bit of an unusual beginning to my life. Your listeners, just to know, excuse me, I was born in 1950, and that was during the polio epidemic that was raging in the United States. And unfortunately, less than a month after I was born, my mother and brother contracted polio, and my mother died when I was less than 1 month old. Fortunately, my brother, after 6 months of physical therapy, recovered totally and later became a very good athlete. But unfortunately, my mother died. And as a result, my father, brother, and I moved in with my father's parents, my paternal grandparents. So we initially, and all through my life, have maintained a very close relationship with all my relatives, my extended family. That includes grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, as well as my brother, and later I have a younger sister through my father's second marriage. So my family structure has always been extremely important throughout my entire life.
I love that because that's the old school way, Ken. That's how they did it back in the day. And that family unit was pretty tight and supported each other seriously. Much is this frank. I want to say that today we're kind of not as cohesive, if you will, as back in the day when we grew up, because I'm a little old one too as well. And I remember family being everything in back in the day. As you're moving through your life, Ken, and you're heading into college, I want to know, as I always ask this question, which college you picked, but more importantly, what field of study did you pick and why did you pick it?
I decided to go to Cornell University in upstate New York. And I picked that because I was very good in math all through my high school, junior high school years. And my guidance counselor suggested if you're good in math, you should become an engineer. So I went to Cornell University and I was majoring in industrial engineering. And actually, it was my brother that suggested I apply to Cornell. He's 2 years older than me.
Yeah.
He very much wanted to go to Cornell when he graduated from high school, but unfortunately was not admitted. So, my brother encouraged me to apply and go to Cornell. Now, at the time, I must admit, I didn't know much about the field of engineering. I went into it based on the advice of my high school guidance
Yeah.
counselor. Just knew I wanted to do something in the mathematics field.
Why did you pick that specific one? Because there's so many aspects to engineering. How come did you lean towards that one versus electrical engineering?
Well, at Cornell in engineering, your first 2 years are all basic studies in engineering. And during those 2 years, I found that engineering was really not the best choice for me. I did not enjoy it as much as I thought. While I loved the math aspect, the science aspect I was finding a bit overwhelming. So when I looked into the various options in engineering, I thought industrial engineering gave me the most options because it seemed the most business oriented.
Mhm.
And I felt that maybe after I graduated, I would go into some type of business field or potentially go into law, which I knew some engineers who graduated later went into law.
Wow, I love that story. This is where in college is where, as they say, life happens. And as you are moving through and doing your thing in college, Ken is pretty athletic, and he'll let you know his story as how that happened. But talk to us because that particular day and that incident will change you and your life and your family forever on this plane, but it will change you and impact you deeper inside as an individual. Talk to us about that day. And later on, Ken, I'm going to ask you because the hard times, that's what I want to know. How did you manage it? Because those days, man, when you're in therapy and all that stuff, the mind games that you have to become a student of, if you will. Talk to us about the injury, how it happened, and when you woke up and that first day was there, you realize your world has changed. Talk to us about that.
Okay, well, as you indicated, I was an avid athlete growing up. And when I was at Cornell, I chose to participate and play on their lightweight football team. And on October 31st, 1970, early in my junior year, I was playing on the lightweight team. And I felt that playing football was a good way for me to kind of relieve some of the stress and anxiety I was feeling
Yeah.
throughout my studies at Cornell because it was a very stressful situation. And I felt that going out on the athletic field, I could really take out a lot of my stress and anxieties by basically just running into the opposing player and being physically active. Well, on that particular day, October 31st, 1970, we were playing in a game against Columbia University. And I was in on the kickoff squad. And on the kickoff, I ran down the field, tackled the ball carrier. But when I made impact with him, I broke my neck and severely damaged my spinal cord. And as a result, I am almost totally paralyzed from the shoulders down. I now have a little bit of movement in my left arm, but nothing in my fingers or my wrist. And on the right side of my body, I can just shrug my shoulder a bit. So when you say when I woke up and realized what happened, I actually never lost consciousness. I was conscious on the field after this happened, and I really had no idea why I couldn't move. Back then in 1950, I, as well as most people, didn't know much about spinal cord injuries. I had no idea why I couldn't move. And I spent the next 9 months and 20 days in various hospitals and rehabilitation centers. And even back then, I really didn't fully understand all the ramifications of a spinal cord injury. I thought once the break in my neck healed, I would be back on my feet. And it took quite a while before I was informed and realized that's not the case with a spinal cord injury.
Ken, once you realize that, once the gravity of what took place began to reside into your thoughts and become a reality, if you will, and once that hits right there, and then you're now proceeding, they're going to say to you, well, therapy will help and so forth. When you began that journey, because I know that's going to be some dark days, if you will, and you're going to have to talk yourself through those things to encourage yourself and so forth. How did you manage, Ken? How did you manage the 9 months and 20 days?
Ken, I was terribly depressed during this time, but I was very fortunate that I had an incredibly supportive and loving family and group of friends who were with me every step of the way. They visited me as often as they could, and they kept encouraging me not to lose hope, not to give up. And they said there was still a lot I could do. I mean, while I had a severe physical disability, it did not affect me intellectually at all. And my family basically assured me they would act as my arms and legs if need be to enable me to still do everything I wanted to do in my life. And while I was in the rehab center, a vocational counselor there by the name of Joyce Mesh encouraged me to go back to school and continue my education. So I made up my mind that I was going to do my best not to let my injury stop me from doing anything I would have done in my life had I not been injured. So, based on her advice and suggestions, I returned to Cornell just 11 days after I got out of the rehab center, and I resumed my studies in industrial engineering.
I hope you guys are listening to our Ken's story. What a powerful story right there. He talks about in his darkness and he found his team. And I tell people, Ken, how important it is to have your team, your family, the good friends and so forth when you're going through those dark times, because sometimes we're not capable or we're not strong enough. We're not strong enough to go to deal with it. And we may be in a depressed state. And it is our families and our team, our good friends and so forth that will walk with us. And what happens is at some point we believe, we switch and we believe. And then here is this counselor that came, had that conversation, you switched and you believed. And once we believe, Ken, we declare what we believe. And you said, I am going to go back to school and finish. And I tell people that God is the greatest creator, if you will. And Genesis, the first couple of chapters, tells us how he did it, just like how you did it. He believed what he wanted to do, and then he declared what he was going to do. And so and I tell people, we have that same capability. And so you did it. And then you began to put into place, put into practice the tools necessary for you to accomplish what you just said. You went back to school and you are there studying. Talk to us about being in that space right there, Ken, because now you have so much more added to your being as you're studying, you're going through, you have the pain, you have all the disability, all the different things. Talk to us as to how did people, now the outside world, began to relate to you and how did you handle that?
Well, it was certainly a very difficult adjustment to make, both at the time as well as now. There are still issues that I'm facing. But back then, I knew that I wanted to go back to school. My choice to go back to Cornell, which I absolutely loved, may not have been the best decision at the time. I mean, you need to keep in mind, this was about 20 years before the Americans with Disabilities Act took
Yeah,
effect.
wow.
Now, the Americans with Disabilities Act required schools as well as workplaces, public facilities to be made more accessible to
Mhm.
people with disabilities. This was 20 years before that, and Cornell was on a particularly inaccessible campus. It was on a very hilly terrain, and most of its buildings had steps in front of them, and there was not one ramp or curb cut on the entire campus. On my first day of classes, when I went back, I had to be either pulled up or bounced down close to 100 steps
Wow.
just to attend my first day of classes. So it may not have been the best decision at the time to go back to Cornell, but I was determined to make it work regardless of what the hardships were. And fortunately, through family and friends, I had a lot of help and they helped me go through it. I remember after my first day, I'm lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, questioning the decision I made. And I started to think, what else am I going to do at this time?
Yeah.
I had no plan B.
Yeah.
It was either this work or I don't know what would happen. But I was fortunate. I had a lot of help. People pushed me to continue. And through that help, I was able to complete the last 2 years of my undergraduate degree during those next 2 years. And in 1973, I became the first quadriplegic to ever graduate from Cornell University.
I hope you guys are listening. Can I try to tell people that life has a way to turn us into heroes? And the only difference within a hero and one that is not is one that did not give up. That's it. There's no magic bullet to it. It's just the one that did not give up. And when that individual,
Ken, it,
go ahead.
right? I'm sorry to interrupt,
No,
Ken,
go ahead.
but I just want to include that while I did not give up, my family and friends did not give up on me either. And it was only as a result of them staying actively involved in my life that I was able to do what I did.
And that's why I always tell them, Ken, find your team. You can't do this. You can't do this alone. Even those, Ken, that are not, injured in any way, shape, or form. It's just we're dealing with serious negative thoughts that leads us into depression. And as I mentioned to you, I told you about my friend, and her thoughts were leading her into committing suicides. We're dealing with these tremendous heavy things, and it is good to have someone, a team that you can rely on that will hold your hands and say, you're not alone. I'm here with you. Let's walk it together and encourage that individual. As you got your degree and you graduate and you're now heading in to the corporate world, if you will, Ken, because this is, again, before the Disability Act and so forth. How did they receive you when you had done all your studies, made your way through, as they say, you graduated and everything? How was corporate America at that time? Again, this is way back before the Disability Act. How did they receive you once you escaped, if you will, from school and you graduated? How did they receive you when you got into corporate America?
They certainly did not appear very welcoming at the time. So I might add that I knew when I graduated from Cornell that industrial engineering no longer seemed like a viable field for me. For one, this was well before the age of laptop computers, and it was very difficult for me to function as an engineer. Now, I was fortunate that I took some electives in psychology during my undergraduate years, and one of my professors, by the name of Dr. James Moss, encouraged me to pursue a career in psychology and in counseling. So I continued my education at Cornell and earned a Master of Arts degree there, where I majored in counseling and student personnel administration. And I became the first quadriplegic to earn a graduate degree from Cornell. And then to increase my counseling credentials, I went to Columbia University where I obtained a second graduate degree, this one a Master of Education degree, where I majored in psychological counseling and rehabilitation. And I decided to look for a job in the rehabilitation counseling field because I wanted to help others who were experiencing severe disabilities in their life or who were facing a lot of challenges and trying to overcome hardships. So I started to look for a job in the rehabilitation counseling field. And now that I had 2 degrees from Cornell, 1 from Columbia, 3 prestigious Ivy League degrees, 2 master's degrees, I was fairly confident that I shouldn't have any difficulty, or at least not much difficulty, securing employment. Well, this was in the mid 1970s, and no one would hire me. I sent out more than 200 resumes and looked for a job for a year. It seemed everyone felt I was just too disabled to work. And I was even turned down when I offered to volunteer my services. Finally, in 1977, I found one organization willing to give me the chance to show what I can do. And that organization was Abilities Incorporated, which was part of what was then called the Human Resources Center. It's now called the Viscardi Center after its founder, Dr. Henry Viscardi Jr. They're located on Long Island in New York. And they finally hired me to work as a vocational rehabilitation counselor there. And for that opportunity, I will always be grateful to them for giving me that opportunity.
Wow, what resilience, as they say. Let me talk to you here. Can we back up a little? Because here you are, you've gotten all these accomplishments and you did the work. You went in and disciplined yourself and did it with a disability. Some people without a disability haven't even done half of the things that you've done. And you're studying psychology and you're getting data in there from psychology that deals with the inner self and all these guys that you're studying. How did all of that knowledge, as you're gaining that stuff, how did it begin to impact you, Ken? Because you have to deal with much. And the fact that you're inputting all of this data about the inner, the subconscious being, all of these things, how did you begin to, um, how is it affecting you?
Ken, it was a combination of things. For one, my family and friends did so much to physically help and encourage me to do more that after a while I felt I'd be letting them down
Yeah.
if I didn't do as much with my life as I possibly could. And secondly, I was very motivated before my injury. I mean, you don't go to Cornell University, study engineering, and play a sport at the same time and not be very motivated.
Yeah.
So I was working very hard to keep my injury, to not let my injury stop me from remaining motivated. But in addition, I was feeling a little bit guilty for all the help I was receiving. And I needed to find a way to give back some of that help. I needed to feel better about myself by now helping others. And that's one of the reasons why I went into rehabilitation counseling. And when I worked at the Viscardi Center, it made an enormous difference in my life because now I was in a position to help others. And as a result, it increased my feelings of self-esteem, of self-worth. It increased my self-confidence, and it changed totally my outlook about myself. And as it turned out, while I was counseling other individuals with disabilities, I was actually the most physically limited of all the people I was counseling. And I felt that I was making a difference in their lives by showing them that even someone with my disability can work and work well at a job. And it made me feel better every day just going to work there.
Yeah, that's a powerful remedy, if you will, for an individual to be able. And I tell people this all the time, Ken. When you serve, there is a can just explain it so beautifully, and my words would be more than inadequate to explain how Ken just explained it. But it's alive. It makes you alive, and I tell people get out and serve, man. It makes you alive. It gives you a certain degree of confidence. It helps you to be a better individual as you are serving others. It is the most beautiful thing that a human being can do is to serve others and assist those that are outside of them. And when you do that, it feeds you, it encourages you. It's there's a scripture that says it's better to give than to receive. And when you do that, um, Ken testified as to what he received as a result of living that lifestyle. And so I want to challenge those out there that are thinking about serving. Volunteer. Start there, and you will see the changes happening in you. As you are there, Ken, and you are able to shine before those, if you will, but you still have to deal with you. You still have to deal with Ken and all of his mind and his thoughts. As you're there serving and making an impact, I want you to pull out a story, Ken, out of your memory of someone that presented before you. And through your wisdom and your knowledge, the insights that you gain and all those things in life, you were able to be as I was to an Aaron. How, talk to us about that story that comes to your mind, that you're able to redirect someone, give them a new perspective as to how to approach their situation. And when they did, talk about what it did to them.
Well, there are a number of things that went into that, Ken. First, let me say that while I was facing challenges in my life, I knew that every day when I was getting up in the morning, I could choose to either be severely depressed or instead try and maintain a positive attitude and look in the best of, what I was able to do and how I could help others. And I found that by keeping a positive attitude, more people wanted to be around me. More people wanted to help me when I was showing, one, that I had a positive attitude, and two, that I was motivated to do something with my life. And here I was working now as a rehab counselor. And there was one individual I remember counseling who was a father, was a family man, had a disability, and he was from, it was either India or Pakistan, I don't recall which country. And he was very upset because he was having difficulty finding a job. And at the center, we help people find jobs. And unfortunately, it looked like the best job we could get for him paid less than what he was earning on disability staying home. And he said, that's okay.
Wow.
For my country, a man must work. And as a result, I would rather go to work and earn less money than stay home and reap the benefits of, having a disability pension. And that motivated me even more to see how somebody with a disability was pushing himself to go out and do something with his life because it increased his self-esteem.
Yeah.
And then I saw what other people were doing with their disabilities. Everybody faces challenges in their life. And I saw everybody working incredibly hard to still be positive and make something of their lives. At the Viscardi Center, they even have a school for handicapped children from preschool all the way through high school. And I got to see one individual who had muscular dystrophy and uses an electric wheelchair to go through the Viscardi school, later go over to college, work for a while, and eventually become a judge. He's actually a judge in Nassau County. And I'm seeing wonderful changes being made in people because they're working hard. They're devoted to making something of their lives and to helping others in the process. And that's what I wanted to do with my life, to do as much as I could to help others, to pay back from all the help I was receiving on a daily basis.
That's the key, guys. You have to, attitude. It's nothing like it. The right attitude. So Ken, talk to me now as it leads to the book. And I know the history is a powerful story. Talk to me as to who was it that thought about, hey, let me put this to a book, and talk to us about that journey, because that is also a journey. And you guys that are listening to us, we're going to provide all the links for you guys to get to Ken and buy his books. And then you guys, what I've been saying for years now. You get a bunch of friends and start your little book clubs, and you buy one, each one of you buy a book, and you read a chapter, and then you come together and talk about that chapter, excavate it from all the different vantage points so that you can really get a taste of what the author is talking about, those principles that are in those books. And I'm telling you, the group of you guys are going to change the world if you understand and what I'm talking about. Get it, give it as presents to people. This is a powerful story. So here we go. Talk to us as to how that journey took place. Can that walk you through to the book where you're going to say, okay, let me write this book? And the title of that book is I Dream of Things That Never Were. And so let's hear Ken, and then I'm going to ask him a question. Ken, go ahead.
Well, while I was still in the rehab facility, a friend of my Aunt Lorraine's by the name of Al Meglin came to visit me, and he suggested I write a book. I mean, we did it basically for two reasons. One, he knew I was very depressed, and he thought maybe by talking to somebody about what I was going through,
Mm-hmm.
it may help me deal with my depression. But in addition, people didn't know much about spinal cord injuries.
Yeah.
I mean, this was about 25 years before Christopher Reeve suffered his devastating spinal cord injury. So there weren't very many role models out there back then, or people that you could look to and, look to for inspiration or inform you about what an injury like that entailed. So he suggested talking about it in a book just as a way to inform others about what a spinal cord injury means and what it means to go through rehab. So he used to visit me once a week while I was in the rehab facility, and I would dictate to him, what I was experiencing and going through. And then when I went back to college, I would try and meet with him on vacations when I'd come home. But then, after I graduated, we stopped working on the book for a while, and I would start again, stop again over the course of years. And that lasted for a long time. And eventually I got married. I married a wonderful woman named Anna, who encouraged me to pick up the book again and to continue to work on it. And, it took a while with Anna sitting by her laptop computer and me dictating, but we worked on it extensively. And it took more than 50 years after I started, but we eventually finished my memoir. And I might add how I got the title of my book, Ken. While I was still in the rehab facility, I was asked to testify before a United States Senate Health Subcommittee chaired by Senator Edward Kennedy. And 8 days after my testimony, Senator Kennedy sent me a glass paperweight in the mail that had an inscription on it that the senator said his late brother Robert Kennedy liked very much. And it was the words on that inscription that really inspired me and meant so much to me. And the inscription read, "Some men see things as they are and say why. I dream of things that never were and say why not." And that's where I got the title of my book, I Dream of Things That Never Were.
That even makes it more precious, guys. Get out there. Like I said, buy it as gifts to others. Give it to mom, dad, someone who is struggling. It does not have to be physical struggling. Any struggles, mind. Here is someone that has gone through physical changes in his life and was able yet to accomplish so much. Those that are disabled and are depressed, because we know that this is one of the things that they will have to deal with is depression. Give them Ken's book so that they can hear his story and sit there with them so that you can be a part of it with them, so that you can walk and hold their hands, because that space of depression can be a dark place. But if they have someone with them, it is going to change their life. Ken, this has been a good one, man. I love your story. It's such a powerful story as I was reading and listening to all of the things out there that you had. I was looking forward to this interview because I know what you have inside would have been accessible for anyone to be able to get through from a dark space into that place of a light, if you will, so that you can move through your pain. I want to thank you, Ken, both you and your wife, man. I know she's been patiently on the side listening to us, but I just want to thank you both for coming and affording the opportunity for me to chat with you. And I look forward to getting this one out so that those folks that need Ken's wisdom to be able to help. Ken, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you, Ken. If I might just say another sentence or two
Please.
about my life and my book. Many people have described my book as a love story. Not just talks about the difficulties I went through, but it talked about having met and marrying my wonderful wife, Anna, has changed my life. And actually, a week ago, we celebrated our 22nd wedding anniversary. But as wonderful as that's been, my life got even better because when Anna and I decided to get married, she said that she wanted to have my baby. And not just a baby, my baby, which really seemed impossible back then. But we researched various options, including in vitro fertilization, and found it still may be possible for someone in my condition to father a child. So we pursued it. And on January 24th, 2005, I was present in the delivery room, Ken. Think about this.
That's
I was
beautiful.
present in the delivery room when my wife gave birth to triplets.
Wow.
We have 3 beautiful boys, Joey, Jimmy, and Timmy. They're now 20 years old, just finished their sophomore years in 3 separate colleges in upstate New York. And when I say my book is also a love story, that involves not just my wife, but my 3 wonderful sons.
That is beautiful. Anna, come on out. Let's see. You can't hide, Anna. Come on out.
On the street.
Come on out,
Yeah.
girl. You can't
My
hide.
incredible wife.
It's
Thanks.
awesome. Thank you, Anna, for coming out so that we could see you. Let me ask you this question, Ken, before we close, because you have gone through much. You have came out of the other side, and I've been asking people this question, and I wanted to throw it at you as well. You have a mic in your hands, and that mic, Ken, is connected to all 8+ billion of us on this planet. What would you say?
I would say a number of things. First, never give up. We all face challenges in our life, but fortunately, through everybody's help, working as a community, working as a family unit, working with your family and friends, there's still an awful lot you can do, no matter what challenges you're facing in your life. And if you continue to move forward, try and do your best to remain motivated and use that inner strength that we all have. It's not just, that general ability to handle life in difficult situations. I believe we all also possess an inner strength that enables us to rise to the occasion and tackle what may seem like impossible odds. There's an awful lot everyone can do if they do that.
I absolutely agree. And Ken, thank you. I'm going to leave it at that. There's not much I could say after that. Thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment and allowing us to have access to you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Ken, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my story with your listeners.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.